so far. Yesterday's about forgiveness is one of those that I really just love. If there was a takeaway from that, well, before I jump into that, let me do this. I just want to do a little quick review of some of what led up to yesterday's course, right? So let's see. Last week we were near the end of the week. We talked about God is my source. I cannot see apart from Him, right? So that it is we are connected. It is one. Lesson 44 was God is the light in which I see, and light being truly getting vision versus just the objects we create with our mind to think that that's what we see. And I know that's a little out there, but that's really what that talks about. And then number 45 was God is the mind in which I think. And again, that idea that it's one-minded. We're a soul mind with that, and so it is the mind of God. And remember, God made you to be perfect, whole, and complete. Perfect, whole, and complete. Yesterday's lesson, then that led to that one, and that was that God is the love in which I forgive. God is the love in which I forgive. Again, I just think this is one of those lessons that can really have so much impact. I know it did for me the first time, and it's a great reminder again that forgiveness can only be given if there's some sort of condemnation. And so the idea that God never condemns us, so there's no need to get forgiveness from Him, and that whole idea around that is just false. And yet He can give us access to being forgiving. And forgiving, first and foremost, is to those that we are holding out ill will towards. And that was a part of the lesson yesterday. And yet ultimately that was leading to being able to forgive yourself for whatever and everything. So it's that whole idea of that it is about forgiveness and forgiving yourself. So, and there are a couple of quick key statements out of that. Number one was that focus on the giver, not the receiver of forgiveness, right? So as I give forgiveness, I end up being better for that. I feel better. I perform better. I'm just all around. It's just a better feeling. And that statement that God doesn't forgive because He has to condemn us first, and He doesn't. So there's no need for that idea that we need forgiveness from God. And then finally, by forgiving, you are free from your egoic mind's belief that there are forces out to harm you. Remember that idea of lack, fear, want all comes from our ego. And it forces us to feel separate or separated from. And when we can manage our egoic mind, there's no need for any of this because it doesn't exist in a non-egoic, in our oneness, in our mind being the mind of God. And then finally, the statement I love too, and it was that forgiving is letting go of fear-based thought system. And that's really our egoic mind, right? So it's that is our fear-based thought system. And so when we forgive, it forces us to let go of that. So today's lesson number 47 kind of fits right along with that. So this is where I love this section of the course. And that statement for today is God is the strength in which I trust. God is the strength in which I trust. So here's what the actual lesson manuscript says, and then I'm going to jump into the explanation. Then I'll give us the lesson in practice. It's slightly different today than it has been in the past, just slightly though. So the manuscript says this: God is the strength in which I trust. If you are trusting in your own ego's strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. If you're trusting your own ego's strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. What can your own egoic mind predict or control? What is there in you that can be counted on? What would you give the ability to be aware of all the facets of any problem and resolve any problem in such a way that only good can come of any problem? Let me say that one again, because that's a powerful one. It says, what would you give? What would give you, I'm sorry, that's where this wasn't reading right. What would give you the ability to be aware of all of the facets of any problem and to resolve any problem in such a way that only good can come from any problem? Imagine that you would have access to a way that only good can come from every problem because you have the way to resolve that. What is there in you that gives you the recognition of the right solution and the guarantee that the right solution will be accomplished? Well, of your egoic self, you can do none of those things. To believe that your egoic mind can do any of these things is to put your trust where trust is unwarranted, and to justify fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. So that's the first thing to think about, is that when I do that, that's what it's unwarranted, and that's what's going to come from it. Who can put faith in the weakness of your egoic mind and then feel safe? Yet who can put his faith and strength that comes from God and feel weak? You can't either. So God is your safety in every circumstance. God's voice, the Holy Spirit, speaks for God in all situations and in every aspect of all situations, telling you exactly what to do to call upon God's strength and God's protection. Let me say that again. So God's voice, which is the Holy Spirit, speaks for God in all situations and in every aspect of all situations, telling you exactly what to do to call upon God's strength and God's protection. There are no exceptions, because God has no exceptions. And the voice which speaks for God, which is the Holy Spirit, thinks as God does. Now, so today we're going to, actually, I'm not going to read the exercise itself. So it says, fear arises, however, in the time that you believe it, there's lack, you then lack the creative ability to handle a given situation. Fear arises anytime you believe you lack the creative ability to handle any situation. Man, Darren, I'm struggling this morning. Whether you actually do have the ability to handle the situation or you do not have the ability, that truth is irrelevant. So it doesn't really matter. Your beliefs, not the truth, will determine when fear will arise within your egoic mind. So you, as decision maker, must decide which thought system you will follow. Each thought system is based on a different understanding of who you really are. The ego's thought system is based on the belief in limitation, lack, and separation. This thought system is the source of all fear. Accept your ego's belief that you are the body, and you must accept the limitation that comes with the body. When you believe in the limitations, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. Now, the second thought system is represented by your inner guide or the Holy Spirit, which again speaks for God. It is based on the belief that you are unlimited in spirit and you're part of the mind of God. That's that second choice of the two thought systems. Now, in this thought system for truth, which with a capital T, starts with the capital T, truth, love and forgiveness rule. So in this thought system where you're not letting your egoic mind run you, love and forgiveness rule. You remain as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. Your strength comes from your source, which is the mind of God itself. Your strength comes from your source, which is the mind of God itself. Now, your ego does not know who you truly are. Remember, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Your ego doesn't know what's best for you either. Because its belief about you are wrong, your ego's fear-based thought system will always leave you in a state of fear. To escape from fear, you must place your trust in the Holy Spirit, who knows that you are God's beloved child. Now, when you place your trust in the strength from God, you are safe from your ego's belief in limitation. The law of perception have no ability to bind a child of God unless you decide to abdicate your own power and argue for your own limitations. And when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. So your own egoic belief system in your inadequacy is the source of all fear. So your acceptance and trust in the Holy Spirit is your salvation. The strength of God is your source for your inner peace that is your destiny. Now, the advice from the Holy Spirit protects you from all egoic misperceptions. Provisional reality has no power to change the truth, and that's truth with a capital T. You remain as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. Perfect, whole, and complete as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. Now, the lesson for today says this. Today we'll try to reach past your own egoic mind's weakness to the source of real strength, which is God. 4 5-minute exercise lesson exercises are what we're going to ask for today, or practice periods. And there's going to be no requirement for multiple small practice periods throughout the day. So it's 4 5-minute periods. And it says this, when you do this, close your eyes and begin as usual by repeating the idea for the day in the lesson, which is God is the strength in which I trust. So start by saying that, and then spend a minute or two searching, again with your eyes closed, in your mind for situations in your life in which you have invested with fear. And you can then dismiss the fear by stating the following: God is the strength in which I trust. God is the strength in which I trust. God is the strength in which I trust. Now, once you do that, try to slip past whatever those ideas of times when you've had fear that be the thing that's running you, and to your own sense of inadequacy. So slip past all of that. It's obvious that any situation that causes you concern is associated with feelings of inadequacy, for otherwise you would believe that you could deal with the situation successfully. So we're trying to move past that feeling of inadequacy to what would be success, because you have the capacity for it. It's not trusting your egoic self that you will gain, in doing so, that you will gain confidence. However, it's by the strength of God in you, and the idea that then you are successful in all things because you have God within you. Remember, you're perfect, whole, and complete. Perfect, whole, and complete. Now, the recognition of your own frailty is necessary. It's a necessary step in the correction of your egoic mind's errors. So you have to recognize that you've had that running you for some time. That idea that there's fear. It's my frailty. I'm not perfect, whole, and complete. Whatever it is that you're telling yourself that has fear show up. You must also gain an awareness that confidence in your real strength, which comes from God, is fully justified in every aspect and in all circumstances. You can have that because you're perfect, whole, and complete. You're perfect, whole, and complete. Now, in the latter phase of the practice period, so again, 5 minutes, 4 of those a day, try to reach down into your mind to a place of real safety. You will recognize that you've reached a place of real safety if you feel a sense of deep inner peace, even if it's brief. Even if it's brief. Now let go of all the trivial things that churn and bubble to the surface of your mind, and reach down deep below these trivial thoughts to the kingdom of heaven. There's a place in you where this is a peaceful place. There is a place in you where nothing is impossible. There's a place in you where the strength of God abides. And that's what this lesson is working towards, is to tapping into that and finding that spot, even if it's for a brief moment. Now, during the day, repeat the idea that God is the strength in which I trust. Often, again, what I've done is I set it up on my phone and it pops up and tells me that. So it's just a little reminder for me. Now, so do that. God is the strength in which I trust. Do that often throughout the day to day. Use that idea that God is the strength in which I trust as your answer to any disturbance. And the word disturbance here is anything that might give you fear, might give you pause, might have you doubt your abilities. So use that every time that shows up. God is the strength in which I trust. God is the strength in which I trust. Remember that peace is your right. It's your divine birthright to have inner peace, because you were given your trust in the strength of God. And so this is probably my second favorite lesson of the first 2/3 of the lessons, which is the unpeeling of the stuff we carry around with us, that God is the strength in which I trust. God is the strength in which I trust. God is the strength in which I trust. That coupled with yesterday are two really powerful ways to be. And so with that, I'm just going to ask you if there's any questions or clarity that I can give you on any of what I threw at you today. I apologize for the front end. I was stumbling on my words. So any thoughts, questions? I was remiss. I didn't ask how the lesson yesterday went around forgiveness. And we do have a few more minutes if anyone wants to share what happened with that as well.
I found it challenging to do. I kind of, to be honest, I rejected the exercise a little bit.
You rejected it.
A little, yeah, I could feel myself Yeah, because there's some there. Yeah, I guess there's some things that I'm just not maybe willing to let go of, which is not, which I own. I own that I own. I guess I was maybe needed some kind of clarification around the idea that I can forgive somebody knowing that they will cause harm again.
So by you not forgiving them, does that stop them from causing harm again?
It helps keep them further away.
So it's
It's,
protecting you, is what
yes.
you're okay.
Yeah.
And who suffers in that on an ongoing basis?
Well, me less so than I used to when I was more involved. The for the it doesn't help this person whether you're right though. It doesn't help or hurt them whether or not I forgive them.
See that's a key distinction. Here's the thing I think about: they live their days and their life not even aware, with probably no awareness. I doubt that they wake up every day going, "I wonder if this is the day that Lynn Marie's going to forgive me." They're
Probably not.
oblivious to it, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think that's what and I think our egoic mind has us thinking that either it's protection or it's punishment that we're giving them by not forgiving them. We're protecting ourselves or we're punishing them by not forgiving them. And the only person who suffers neither one of those is you, because they don't have an awareness of it, nor did they. Even if they did, they probably wouldn't care, because if they did, they wouldn't do whatever it is that you have to give them forgiveness for.
They cycle through.
But
um,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, but in between the cycles, though, who suffers can
Right.
see, and so that's
Yes.
just it. It's a matter of just do I let go?
Hmm.
Do I let go? And ultimately, remembering you're perfect, whole, and complete. You're perfect, whole, and complete. And so, if you can let go of whatever that is, the stuff that you're holding, then I think it gives you that opportunity to forgive yourself for whatever that would need to be.
That's true.
That
Yeah.
gives you a great place. So you use the word rejection. I rejected this, so that's a pretty strong word. So that's an interesting choice, and that's what was there for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very visceral reaction. Like I could feel this, like my brain being like, no, like when I was attempting to do it, like it was just very like it put like, I could feel my egoic self putting its foot down.
But I love that you
So,
recognize that, because that's definitely where that's coming from, isn't it? It's our egoic mind. It's
yeah.
yeah, because you get to be separated now when you're holding withholding forgiveness.
Hmm. Yeah. I guess that was part of it too. It's just by like thinking about it, then it was just like, oh, like there's feelings that I don't like thinking about with this, and there's future problems that are coming from this, there's past problems that have come from this person, and there will be more. And so just even opening it up when it's easier to not think about it on a daily basis is challenging too.
Well, let me ask you this: do you really believe that not thinking about it daily has it be completely gone during those times?
Oh, no, no, no. I mean, yeah, you can ask my husband. You'll see feelings about it sometimes rear its heads in odd
Yeah.
moments. So,
But and here's the thing, Lynn, this is not easy.
mhm,
This dialogue is not at all, because most of us have been conditioned. Most of us have been conditioned to never ever go there,
mhm.
because we think it's easier. Here's what I would like to just have you think about: in the moment, it won't be easy. In the long run, it's going to be so worth it.
Yeah.
Because if you imagine what life looks like when you can live it totally in forgiveness and not holding anything inside on anything that you would be wanting forgiveness for or granting forgiveness of. It's just
It's
that's
a better life, yeah. So I'm gonna have to work on this one. It was just a very
so
interesting
yeah, no, it's perfect.
call.
It's perfect. So yeah, work. But by the way, this isn't like you can snap your fingers and you get this all. Remember, the first 2/3 of A Course in Miracles is getting rid of this stuff, so
Mhm.
that we can get to the last third, which is the miracle, where miracles are. So there's a lot of stuff we have to get rid of in this, and that's why it's done that way. So thank you for sharing that, though. I really appreciate it.
Hey, can I pop something in? This is Laurie.
Yes, Lori.
Um, forgiveness doesn't mean that you're going to turn around and be a patsy, because through our experiences we develop our wisdom, and so when you forgive somebody, when I forgive somebody, I'm just letting go of that stuff. It doesn't mean that if a new situation arises sometime in the future that I might repeat the old pattern or they might repeat the old pattern. We just don't know. And it gives you a freshness so that even if they do repeat their old pattern, we don't have to repeat our old pattern. We can, we can be wise, we can make better choices and just not be burdened with that old stuff all the time.
That's a great distinction. I love the use of the word wisdom. That is, it gives us wisdom, doesn't it? And then tools. Really, I look at a lot of this as these are just giving me tools or equipping me to manage things differently as I move forward. And that's all. And that's all I hold this out of. These are tools, but these are tools that lead to a more fulfilling life. And that's just that's what I desire. So that's why I'm in the study of this. So yeah, thank you, Lori. That's very truthful. That's truth with a capital T, truth. So,
in our definition of truth in this conversation.
Exactly right. All right, guys. Well, we're at 8:30, so I'll let you with the rest of your day. Thanks so much for being here with me early this as we continued on this study. So today, the practice period again. Try to do 4 of those. And it's to get past where you were at to really to that level of trust that we talked about today. So was there something else someone wanted to mention?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to update the email. I just verified the email. Rhonda's class is at 11.
Oh, okay.
Not at noon, because I think that was on the slide that it was at noon.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
Yeah. Okay, so it starts at 11. It's an hour from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock is Rhonda's class. All right.
Yes.
Thanks, Lynn Marie. I appreciate that. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.